wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella sure that I don't become you. I have no regrets, yeah, I'll tie up my chest. I'll never forget what it's like to be in debt. Been stabbed in the back bed, I'll show you what happens. Pass me the mic and I'll show you with action. I feel this pain, you already know. Turn that to gains, let my money show. I've got these things that I can't let go. Watch me turn this life into something that you could never own. I feel this pain, you already know. Turn that to gains, let my money show. I've got these things that I can't let go. Watch me turn this life into something that you could never own. So fight and die for the things you know you love. Do what you think is right and see life do what you want. So fight and die.
Talk about drugs and college students, not to tie it into any case, so to speak, at this time. Hopefully in the future, if I can tie that into something, then we will go down that avenue. But this morning, I don't want to go down that route because it takes too long to incorporate those things together. So, yes, usually on the weekends, I try to get these things out as early as possible, just to be able to discuss things early and have people watching over their morning coffee or whatever it is that they're drinking early in the morning. So here's the first article that I want to go over. Yes, I am an addiction therapist, and been doing it for about 20 years now. I'm getting my bachelor's in criminal justice and psychology so that I can be a juvenile probation officer. That's currently where I'm working. So drugs and alcohol and criminal behaviors and things like that are my forte. So I enjoy speaking on the topics. So let's go over this article. It talks about El Paso, Texas. It says a pair of El Paso college students are in deep trouble after being arrested at the border on drug smuggling charges after replying to a job on social media. The job scheme is a long-standing tactic of Mexican drug cartels to recruit mules among the border communities to carry drugs over the international bridge, U.S. law enforcement officials said. The student claimed they had been hired to transport money from Juarez to El Paso, but instead, a concealed load of fentanyl was found in their car on March 26 at the Bridge of Americas, court officials said, an online teleconference detention hearing last week. So, they thought that they were being hired on to transport money from El Paso to Juarez, but come to find out they were transporting illegal substances. The young men and women were both arrested by El Paso County Sheriff's Office on state charges of manufacture and delivery of a controlled substance and remain in the El Paso County Jail. Under Texas' tougher new fentanyl laws enacted last year, anyone caught with more than 400 grams could face a 15-year minimum prison sentence. 15-year minimum sentence for trafficking fentanyl. That's how deadly it is, and that's how serious this state takes it. Since last summer, there's been a rise in similar arrests at the border of drivers claiming they didn't know there were drugs concealed in their vehicles after answering postings about job offers on Facebook. A spokesman for U.S. Homeland Security Investigation in El Paso said. College students arrested in border drug case. The man and woman are Juarez residents with student visas who regularly cross the border to attend school in El Paso, public defense attorney Maya Quavito said at the bond hearings. The man is a graduate of the Autonomous University of Ciudad Juarez, known as UACG, and a doctoral student at the University of Texas at El Paso. The woman attends UACJ and learning English at El Paso Community College at Quevedo stated. The students who don't have criminal records embarked in a perilous situation that was impossible to stop once it was gone into motion. So that should tell you that it doesn't matter the education, the the direction that the individual necessarily want to go towards. Money is a huge factor for individuals to break the law. Even if they feel that they're only transporting money, they could be wrongly mistaken and lose their careers over it. That's the thing. Um, these individuals obviously were getting their degrees and things of that nature, doctorate, things of that nature, and they lost it due to trafficking illegal substances. It said the El Paso Times is not publishing the student's name because the defense claimed the victims were duped. So if you see of any kind of job offer on what I'm about to read, be very mindful that it could be something that's not real. The bespectacled student told officers that they had replied to an ad on Facebook for a job offer to transport money to El Paso, according to retelling of the case by prosecutors and defense attorneys at the hearing. They met with a man at the Denny's restaurant in Juarez and left keys in their car, which was then supposedly taken to a car dealership to install a GPS device for security reasons. The car would later return to the restaurant parking lot. The recruiter made copies of their identification cards and told them that he had many people working for him, with the defense attorney surmised could be veiled threat, meaning that newly hired couriers were being watched. The man escorted them to near the border and instructed the student to drive to a location in El Paso. The woman allegedly told officers that she had concern, but she needed the money, so she decided to go through with the job, court officials stated. It was not disclosed how much the students were paid, but typically drivers in border smuggling attempts get paid a few hundred to a couple $1,000s. And you say, why would somebody do that and risk everything they've been working for? I mean, I believe that this is just my own thinking here. And I was reading this is what I thought, jokingly. Student loans they're a BS one to repay once you get your degrees. So, I mean, maybe they felt the need to make this quick money to start repaying student loans, or actually to um, start building their lives once they completed this. I mean, we see the red flags after the fact, but I don't know if necessarily during the stuff that you would actually see red flags, other than this is too good to be true. You know what I mean? It said during a border inspection at the bridges of the Americas, an X-ray scan detected anomalies in the car's back doors. Over a pound of fentanyl was found and seized, and the students were arrested. The exact amount of fentanyl wasn't disclosed. So they said over 400 grams at the minimum of 15 years. So this is a pound of fentanyl. That's way more than a gram or 4 grams. So they're facing a minimum of 15 years if they're convicted. Wow. The arrests were made by the El Paso County Sheriff's Office, which will often handle border bust areas arrest when the amount of drugs is small. The student case is pending in court. Now hiring. Drug cartels recruit on social media. Drug cartels are always looking for students, business people, and other frequent border crossers to transport drugs hidden among the long lines of daily binational traffic. Drug traffickers would advertise for jobs such as money couriers, for businesses such as Casa de Cambio, money exchange houses. An FBI person said the ads seek persons who are able to legally enter the U.S. So that's another thing that is very um, proficient is if you have a house over here in the U.S. soil, um, a lot of times they'll pay you to use your home as a stash house, meaning stashing illegal immigrants or stashing drugs or stashing money or guns or anything of that sort, or all three of the above, and they'll pay you. And they'll pay you to do that. I wouldn't recommend it. You ask me, I wonder was it a random stop? Possibly so. I mean, people get used to the border official officers, I'm sure, are trained to view facial nonverbals, nervousness, things of that nature. If they ask you what are you doing over there, whether business or pleasure, and you say, well, your stories start to become too embellished, you're giving too much information, then they say, well, let's scan your vehicle, let's see if there's anything that we need to worry about. And then obviously they notice some discrepancies in the door panels, and there we went. It says Homeland Security investigation, willful blindness is not a defense. So just because you said you didn't know there were drugs in your car is not a defense. Ignorance is not a good defense. Decades ago, the ads would be classified section of Juarez newspapers, but are now mostly on Facebook and other social media. The recruiter will send a direct message to the job seeker and set up a job interview. Warned that legitimate businesses do not interview people in parking lots nor the possession of the job seeker's vehicle, which should be a major red flag. That's what Rondi was talking about. The vehicle was taken to conceal drugs inside of it. HSI advises job seekers to research the name and addresses of the company and obtain the employer's information. The allure of easy money can lead to willful blindness to signs of illegal activity, which is not a defense in court. What happens if you get caught smuggling drugs at the border? Punishment can be very greatly depending on the amount and types of drugs that a person arrested without the U.S. border. Besides, all consequences in the criminal justice system of becoming involved in drug trafficking, a smuggling arrest can severely impact immigration and border crossing privilege. Mexican citizens can lose their border crossing cards even if they are not criminally charged. If convicted, legal U.S. residents can be stripped of their residency status and be deported. Wow, they can strip you of your residency and deport you to Mexico or whatever country you're smuggling drugs from. Hey Kim, how you doing? You said when I was in California and cross border, I get stopped every time. There have been cases where a teenager is arrested with drugs in the border express lane and the teen's whole family loses express lane privileges. Regardless of citizenship, the Department of Homeland Security keeps records of persons associated with drug smuggling attempts, which could result in the increase in scrutiny and intensified inspections when entering the U.S. in the future. That is intense right there, wouldn't you think? All that just for some money. Just for some money. And here's another article. It says youth are smuggling drugs on behalf of cartels. Law enforcers launch education campaign. And this is from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of California. It says San Diego, federal and state law enforcement officials have launched a billboard campaign in San Diego and Imperial counties to prevent middle and high school students from acting as drug mules to cartels. The billboards located in San Diego and Imperial counties, as well as one in Mexico, feature stark warning to minors that smuggling drugs could cost them their freedom and their futures, and it's not worth the few $100s they're being offered. They were unveiled today at two locations in San Isidro and one in Tijuana. Also today, a San Diego teenager pleaded guilty in federal court to charges as he recruited classmates to smuggle methamphetamine and fentanyl. Philip Jr. Webb was a senior at Castle Park High School in Chula Vista when he committed the drug offenses. So whenever you're young like that and you're committing these crimes, obviously you're not thinking of the consequences. You're not thinking of what will happen to me if I get caught. Being 18 years old, he will be tried as an adult in federal court for smuggling. So it's not looking good for him. It said the number of incidents in which drugs were seized from minors at ports of entry in the Southern District of California has increased significantly in recent years. There was a 153% spike in drug seizures for minors from 2016 to 2017, from 39 to 99. With 4 months to go in 2018, the pace is set to match 2017 with a troubling new twist. Minors are smuggling ultra deadly fentanyl, which has not happened in prior years. So I don't want to read this whole thing. Maybe later when I get back on here. I just wanted to get on here and talk a little bit about this. And I want to talk about the criminal brain, in which I'm going to do a live probably later on this evening. Um, so we have these youngsters that are being recruited to smuggle drugs across the border. Most of the time, the reason that they're younger than 18 is because if they get caught, even though it's a felony, the chances are they could be placed on probation or even locked up for a little bit. And depending on the charge or the amount, that charge could carry on until past their 18th birthday. And, they could go be incarcerated for whatever the adult um, laws are in that state. So it's very dangerous, especially with fentanyl, because fentanyl is being put in a lot of different mixtures as far as drugs. And most of the time you don't know anymore what it is that you're getting. And it's killing a lot of people. Um, in the IDAHO4 case, they suspected that the four were OD'd on fentanyl or something like that. Um, and that was the big theory. And Kim said expunge record when they reach adulthood. Yes, if it's a minor, if it's a misdemeanor or just a class A, class B, that can be sealed. But if it's a felony, it carries into your adulthood, especially if it's a felonious charge, such as drug smuggling, possession, arson, rape, murder, anything of that nature. So it's very deadly playing with your freedom when you're young like that, because you don't understand the concept that this could affect the rest of my life. And when you have youngsters that have felonies, they're at that point where they feel like they're invincible, so nothing's going to really happen to them, which could be a poor choice on their part later on in life. So you're very right, Kim, on that. Um, Tell me what y'all think about that very brief interpretation of having, and I'm sure it happens everywhere, not just in California. Obviously, here in Texas, we have the same thing. Arizona, all the border states, New Mexico, they have all the problems as well because they're so close to the border. So the problem is that money lures young people into doing felonious things based on success, the promise of success, the promise of monetary gain, and having a life that they've wanted very quickly instead of working towards it. Um, it is tragic that a lot of young kids who come from not very proficient upbringings and poverty sometimes can be sucked into this. And since they are young, not having much consequences unless they do carry more than 400 grams. You said Portland, Oregon, it's beyond belief. I've heard a lot that Oregon, Idaho, Washington, um, those areas up there are very, very flooded with drugs, just like other urban areas and other areas in the country where drugs are running rampant. They're just killing people. And I don't understand how in the past it used to be, well, we'll get the young hooked. That way we have a customer for life. But now it's like they don't even care if they kill their customers. It's just such a demand for it that, you know, next one up. And that's the weight of the world that we live. And social media is a big contributor to drug dealing and drug exposure amongst many people, young to old. You can buy online certain things that can be potentially hidden to the public, but in reality, everybody gets caught eventually. You said we have TriMet trained and it's called TriMeth. That's terrible. That's terrible. You know, I don't know how it is in other areas, but some of the areas that I've lived in recently, you noticed a lot of people carrying backpacks, walking around town, um, not really having a direction, but some of them are actually running drugs and money and weapons between locations, and that is their job to carry all this stuff in the backpack. And oftentimes they don't get stopped because what is somebody doing carrying a backpack? That there's nothing felonious about that. There's nothing other than you have that suspicion as law enforcement that this individual has been stopped before, and you're going to see if they are carrying some kind of controlled substance. If they are carrying some kind of paraphernalia or something of that sort. Um, so it's very prevalent in the U.S. as other areas that high schoolers, junior high kids, even elementary kids are exposed to drugs at a younger age. I go to this alternative school on Wednesdays to check on the probationers at this alternative school, and it seems like the elementary kids are the ones that have the most problem based on their census of vaping. You know, vaping cartridges, vaping pens, vaping. You know, things that are used for nicotine. They're putting methamphetamine in there. They're putting cannabis in there. They're putting all kinds of things, and you know they have what they call plugs. They have places that they call the trap where they can go and get these certain things for whatever they have. And it's sad that being that young that you're exposed to that lifestyle and you don't have any qualms about being in that lifestyle or even exiting that lifestyle at all because you're enjoying the camaraderie of people that think just like you and their belief system think just like you. Well, an elementary kid, what I've been exposed to as far as people telling me how this happens is an elementary kid could have an older brother or sister in their 20s, 21. It had to be 21 here. I don't know if it is everywhere, but 21 to be able to buy that. So the individual will give them money. They go and buy all these cartridges, all these vapes, and then they give them to the young kid. The kid goes to school and sells them and re-ups the money, and distributes them to their classmates. They go into the restroom during breaks or whatever, get puff on the vape. Even in the classroom, they could discreetly puff on the vape, get that high, and then be high all day. Um, Once the vape is completed or finished, you flush it down the toilet. Who's the wiser? They're passing these vapes all day long to their friends who don't have the money for it, and it's just an endless cycle. It's hard to contain. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you see somebody on the street hanging out outside the convenience store, you'd say, "Hey, man, here's $40. Go give me a couple vapes, and you can keep the change." Well, just like alcohol back in the day, you'd go and look for somebody outside the store and say, "Hey, man, can you go give me a six pack or a bottle? Um, you know, keep the change." Well, most kids these days, they find a way to get money. Like I said, they're either selling the vapes, re-upping, just like a drug dealer would, charging extra for the vape, and the kids are either cash apping, Venmo, things of that nature, or they're trading goods for it. I'll give you these AirPods. I'll give you this jewelry. I'll give you these shoes. I'll give you this backpack. Whatever the value, they're trading for it. So you say, "Oh, I see. They do that selling resell with Prime Energy drinks. I guess they're practicing to be an entrepreneur." You're right. Before, and I hate using this phrase, but I'm going to use it anyways. Back in the day, you sold candy. You sold, things that weren't in the little vending machine. But now it's gotten to the point where you're selling things that are changing the way you feel all day long at school. And if you get caught with it, they do a test, and if it is found that it is THC, because that's mostly what the kids are doing, then they get arrested and they get sent to us, and the probation officer decides whether to place them on probation or defer them if it's the first time. So it's a very sad state, um, because you can't. It seems like the schools already have enough pressure to make sure that the kid is there and present. Um, Now you're policing the halls as well to make sure they're not committing crimes. I mean, and the sad part of it is people say, "Well, why don't you just let them smoke?" Well, if you let an underage kid smoke THC, it changes their mental capacity because their brain's not fully developed at that point, not fully developed until 26. So whatever trauma, abuse, drug addiction, or anything done before the age of 26, it altered the brain and the ability for it to reason, to solve problems, and to take care of yourself. So, at that point, you're risking a kid's, being emotionally stunted by allowing them just to smoke on something that is deemed harmful in many areas of the country, even though it's legal. You say you do believe in restorative justice. Well, I do too. But these some of these individuals have been doing this so long that they are at the point of dependency on this chemical. One kid told me that he's cool once he's high, but once he's sober, that's when he wants to go commit crimes and shoot things up and everything else, because his brain is telling him that he wants to commit these offenses when he's sober. And that is scary. You have a kid who's not high wanting to go shoot up other kids' houses and steal weapons and all kinds of stuff in the community. But when they're under the influence, it keeps them calm. So that tells you in itself that there's a chemical imbalance there that's been created by the drug use and the earliness of the use. So um, That is really sad, and it's very demanding on the community. It's very demanding on law enforcement. It's very demanding on social workers and people that, probation officers and people that are trying so hard to rehabilitate individuals to get them to the next level of their lives without having to incarcerate them or put them in treatment programs. But unfortunately, we have this generational curse, as we call it, that, the parent, their parent, their parent, and their parent generation back started the whole cycle of abuse, not liking law enforcement, having issues with authority, and this, that, and the other. So you've created a generational curse. You go and you see your parents in prison, and prison's no longer a deterrent, but it becomes a destination. Well, my family has all went to prison. It's my turn to go to gain my place in the family lore. So it's very detrimental. But you can't get somebody to see this a lot of times until they've hit the rock bottom, so to speak. And I've always told people, when people ask me why I got on here to do true crime and to talk about substance abuse and things of that nature, I've always told them, hey, I've been trying to pass a product off that everybody needs but nobody wants. So it's not going to be a big deal to be talking to individuals who don't believe in what I say, because most of the time when I'm talking to an audience, I am passing along information that they need, they just don't want. And the same thing applies with criminal offenders and that nature. You're trying to teach people how to be pro-social rather than antisocial, and a lot of times they don't want to hear it because they have their mind made up on what their lives should be. And most people, by that point, you can't change them. You can't change a person whatsoever once they've developed that point in life where they believe that their life is destined to be a certain way, and there's nothing you can do to change that until they see something different in themselves. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Um, like I said earlier, I got to get to doing some things that I have planned this morning. So hopefully later on, or maybe later on this weekend, I can get back on and continue this um this presentation. Please please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't, and tell your other people that you talk to that this is a cool place to come hang out. There's plenty of information and plenty of understanding and breakdown of certain things that maybe might be helpful to somebody one day. Well, you guys have a wonderful Saturday. Be safe out there. Be vigilant with your families and your friends. And if you're going through something, try to remember it will change. It will change eventually. So just hang on. Okay? Until we speak again, see you soon.